this place,
touching every hidden wound,
covering me with grace.
I feel the presence of God,
Closer than my pain,
what I could not
heal alone,
Jesus,
heals today.
my heart is breathing,
My soul is rising
peace is flowing,
like a river from above,
I feel the presence of God.
and I know I am loved.
Hello, good evening, and welcome everyone to First and Foremost, the show about your First Lady. And guess what? It's Tuesday, and it's definitely time for First and Foremost. And I am so excited as we are entering our 4th season of First and Foremost. We have had over 40 First Ladies in this first chair, and we have learned a lot. I'd like to take this opportunity to thank First Lady LaToya Smith, our guest from The Hill on last week. We got a lot of positive comments about her. And you know what? I think the interesting thing about it is that you guys are just finding out that our first ladies are just women. We're just like you and I. We just happen to be married to our bishops and pastors and your leaders. But Lady LaToya, thank you so much for your candor. Thank you so much for your honesty and openness, and according to a lot of the viewers, just being real. So she is my first vice president, as I am the president of the Fellowship District's Women's Auxiliary, and I chose her because exactly all the comments that you said about her is exactly the reason why she is my first vice president. So thank you again so much for gracing the first chair. I'd like to thank my sponsors, Elegant Beauty Cosmetics. Elevate your beauty with Elegant Cosmetics. She is actually in the middle of getting her brick and mortar, so I cannot wait to go into the store and give you guys an opportunity. And our First and Foremost viewers, you will always receive a discount, so stay tuned for more information about that. Thank my sponsor, Tailor Made Construction, Body Building, and Personal Training. If your body isn't becoming to you, then you need to be coming to Audrey. And of course, that information could be made available to you as well. Ladies and gentlemen, I am so very excited about our first guest in the chair today. She actually did a conference for Ministers' Wives group, and we were just completely blown away. And you know, most of us like to consider ourselves jacks of all trade and masters of absolutely nothing. Well, she doesn't fit that description. She is truly the master of something, and we're going to get into that later on in the show. But I'm excited for a number of reasons. She actually brought a hat. So the format for First and Foremost is simply this: you and I have a very unique opportunity to speak with first ladies from in and around the United States. You get to hear candid conversations as she talks about her life when the hat comes off. And speaking of hats, our hats are auctioned off during the show. Opening bid is $50, and that $50 and whatever is being bidded is what I use to pay Jason. So help me to help keep the show on the air. Opening bid is $50. If you're interested, give us a call at 313-759-1568, and one of our First and Foremost hostesses will be happy to assist you. Or you can tap in online and give us a quote, and we'll be happy to get back with you, and you will receive your hat ASAP. Without further ado, ladies and gentlemen, I want to introduce to you the greater woman behind the great man that is Reverend Dr. Anthony Johnson of the St. Peter's AME Zion Church. In the first chair tonight, I'm super excited to have her, First Lady Deidra Johnson.
Thank you for having me.
We are so excited to have you. Yes. Thank you for accepting the invitation.
You're welcome.
And thank you for this absolutely beautiful hat. And I just want to take this time because Jason always wants to do something afterwards. But look at this color, first of all. Look how gorgeous that is. And I know plenty of ladies out there that's looking for a hat. So if you're interested, 313-759-1568, and we will be happy to take your bid. First Lady Johnson, let's talk about you. Tell me about yourself, your childhood, your upbringing. How did you get into church?
Oh, that's a Interesting story, because as you mentioned, Greater St. Peter is where my husband pastors, AME Zion Church, but I was brought up in the Baptist church under the leadership of the Reverend Dr. Joseph R. Jordan of Corinthian Missionary Baptist Church.
Familiar with Pastor Jordan?
Yes, in Hamtramck, Michigan.
Yes.
Yeah, that's where I got all of my training.
Oh my goodness!
Whether it was as a kid, as a teenager, as a young adult, and everything that I learned through Corinthian Missionary Baptist Church as a child. And then of course matriculated over to John Wesley AME Zion Church in Southfield, Michigan. And then now with my husband at Greater St. Peter AME Zion Church. So definitely a shift, but same God, same faith, same baptism.
Amen.
Whether
That's
it's
the bottom line.
Right, whether it's Baptist Church or AME Zion Church.
Zion, that is very true. What is the history of the AME? Because that's African Methodist Episcopal
Zion Church. And so our church is over 200 years old.
Wow.
And it is an historically black church. Harriet Tubman, Frederick Douglass, they were some of the members of the AME Zion Church, and so have a long history with abolitionists, have a long history of really helping during that period of time.
Yes.
And our church has been around for a long time.
That's a long time. That's a long time.
Yes. And so you probably, you've heard AME.
Yes.
And then you have CME. And so those are all Methodist churches, if you will. But again, same faith. Our mother church is out of New York.
Oh, wow.
And I believe the AME church, they're out of Philadelphia. So a bit of a split, but at the end of the day, as black people, we weren't able to worship with the white parishioners.
Right.
And at that time, they decided to leave the white church and start their own church. So that's kind of how Methodist came about, with a black Methodist, if you will.
Exactly. Tell me your love story with you and your husband. How did you guys meet?
We met at John Wesley, and it was, we had a revival at the time. And you know how you have church after church in the parking lot?
Yes.
Right.
Yes.
So we were in the church parking lot, a lot of us ladies, and we were just, talking about the revival. And then my husband, well, I didn't know he was my husband at the time. He came out and he was like, "Good evening, ladies." And after he left and went to his car, they were, some of my sisters were saying, "He was speaking to you." I said, No. He said, "Ladies." They were like, "No, he was talking to you." So anyway, after that, I didn't really hear from him. We went to another revival at another sister church. And then I wound up meeting him again. We exchanged numbers. We talked all the way home from the revival. And then within a year and a half later, we were married.
Oh, wow. That's pretty quick.
But he was already a pastor at the time. So I was a little, like, do I want to do this? But a great guy, great man of God. And so we've been happily married. We got married in 2007.
Okay.
So it'll be 20 years next year.
Wow. Well, congratulations.
Thank you.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
Oh, that's a perfect segue. I'm trying to hold my phone and get comments as well. But that's like a perfect segue to, as a first lady, nope, that's not what I want. What do you think is the most important, three most important things in a marriage, a successful marriage?
Communication.
I love that.
So communication, one, because you have to be able to listen to one another. So communication, listening, not just listening with your ears, but listening with your heart.
Yeah.
Right, because there is a difference.
Yes.
And then just having a love for one another and respect for one another. And that's the key.
That is the key. Now, what are the three qualifications to be married to a pastor?
Oh, well, I don't think there's any qualifications. If anything, I believe that, he has his calling and you have your calling.
Amen.
It's just that when you married him, you kind of indoctrinated yourself, if you will, into his calling. But you come together as two whole people.
Absolutely. And
then you bring it all together.
Two whole people.
Right. It's not a half of a person to a half a person, but it's two whole people coming together and being able to do ministry together. And so I feel like there's no real prerequisite, if you will, for becoming the first lady or even married into a pastor, because before he's a pastor, he's a man of God.
Yes, absolutely. And again, I think people forget that. People do forget that.
Absolutely.
And again, that's what this platform is for, just to kind of wrangle you back up and provide you with some information. So what was your husband's pickup line? What was the thing that made you say, this is it?
Interesting enough, so remember I said we talked all the way home.
Yes.
And once we got off the phone, it had to be like 2 a.m.
Wow.
So not only did we talk all the way home, we actually talked through dinner, getting prepared for bed, all of that. And it was just his conversation and the fact that he was a man of God. But then also one of my sisters at my old church was saying, you know, the Lord told me that was your husband. And I said, well, the Lord haven't spoke to me yet. So, you know, we'll continue to, you know, wait on the Lord to speak to me as well. And he did speak to me. And so, and so that's how we got together, because again, it was the fact of his kindness, and he was a servant leader, right? And he was all about the people. Yes. And I saw that, and that is what drew me in, because first and foremost, when I was, because I wasn't looking for a husband. I wasn't looking to be married. I was happily single.
Wow.
It was me and the Lord, and me and the Lord was having a good time.
I love that.
And I was happy in my singleness. I was involved in the church. I was in Sunday school, Bible study. I was over women's ministry. I was co-leader of a women's ministry at church, and so the dance ministry.
Oh my goodness.
So I was heavily involved and active in the church. So, and I was okay. Right? I was not looking for a husband. I'll say that again.
Right.
But he found me.
Yes.
Right? It says what? He findeth a good woman.
Yes,
right?
yes.
He findeth a wife. And he found me. But I was busy doing the Lord's work when he found me.
Yes, yes. And that's always a good thing. Tell me the one hesitation that you had after you knew he was a pastor. You say, wait a minute, I don't know if I could be first lady, because what are you thinking at this time?
Yeah, I think that was more of the apprehension, because he was already a pastor, and I didn't see myself as a first lady. Right. I saw myself as a woman of God, as a child of God, and me being in active ministry, and me having a relationship with God, and me having a relationship with the Lord. And so I didn't look at myself at that. But I had all of these mentors, and I had all these women that I could leverage and think about the role that they had and how they interacted with their husband. And so I just took a page out of their book. Amen. And once the Lord revealed to me that was my husband, that's when I said, okay, Lord, it's all in your hands. Amen. I am submitting to your will. And that's how we're gonna go ahead and get married. Okay. And so I submitted. I did, because again, I was happily married and happily single. Happily single. And when you think about going into a church where the pastor is there already, and he's already established, he's single, and now here you come into that scenario, it is a little bit different than if you were already together and then he got called into ministry. Absolutely. And so it was a different scenario, but it was what the Lord had ordained at that time.
Amen. And you talked about the 3 different churches you went to. Were there first ladies there that you could see as, even though you didn't see yourself as first lady, when you saw them as first ladies, what were your impressions of them?
Yeah. When I look back on it, Dr. Bobby Jordan, she was the pianist, the minister of music, or the organist at Corinthian, and I saw how graceful she was and how she was with the people and her service, and even just how she was as a person. And so in my mind, I went back to that gracefulness. Wow. And how she encouraged people and how she brought people in. And so that was one. And then the second was Pastor Hamilton at the time at John Wesley, his wife, Marguerite. She was just herself. She was like, be your authentic self, be who you are. And she was involved in a lot of ministry. She was she was just a gracious and welcoming woman. And so those were the two, because those were really the only two churches I had been at. And that's what I saw as a first lady. And I didn't necessarily pattern myself after that, but I took all of those characteristics into consideration.
Absolutely.
As I began to think about the role that I was about to endeavor upon.
What do you think is the number one, and that's not a characteristic of a first lady, but what shall I say, if you were to talk to a first lady now because of your experience, what would you tell her to be prepared for? What would be the number one thing to prepare yourself for?
Be prepared to be yourself. But have the conversation before ministry, because you still have to take care of your home. You still have to take care of your husband.
That's the part.
And so you still have a responsibility as a wife. And if you have children, you have a responsibility as a mother.
Yes.
And so that's the whole of a person, right? That's the whole of a woman.
Yes.
You don't have just one role.
Yes.
You have multiple roles.
Yes.
And one of your other roles is first lady. And so I would say be your authentic self, but also, you know, God has given you talents and gifts to be able to support your husband in the ministry. And so tap into those things so that you can help him in your ministry, but also take care of home.
Take care of
Because
home.
that's the most important piece. Is you got to have a happy home. You have to have a well-functioning home.
Yes.
In order for him to have a safe space. So then when he is out doing ministry, he has a place to come back home.
Absolutely. Now, do you have any first lady friends who, and I guess it's a conversation that must be had between first lady and husband. I don't know if that's happening or if they just throw you to the wolves. And I don't think I was thrown to the wolves, but I had a lot of experience in church. I had first ladies to look up to, but a first time first lady, what do you think the most unrealistic expectation of her is?
There is this, what I call an invisible job description.
I love that.
And this invisible job description doesn't necessarily tell you all the prerequisites, or it doesn't tell you exactly what it is that you're supposed to do.
Right.
Sometimes you have to grow into those things.
Absolutely.
Because sometimes the invisible job description says you have to wear a hat. Right? You have to sing in the choir.
Right.
And that's a whole nother story. You have to be at every single event. Right? That's the invisible job description that a lot of times first ladies are thrown.
Yeah.
But is that really what we are supposed to do?
Right. Right.
And not necessarily. You don't have to be at every single event. I had to learn that, right? I didn't have to always be present, but I had to at least make sure that I was being supportive in other ways.
Absolutely.
Right.
Absolutely.
And so for a first time first lady, I would say be your authentic self. Make sure that you are feeding yourself, feeding your family, not only physically, but also spiritually.
Absolutely.
And so physically, spiritually, mentally, all of those things, right? Those are the things that are going to matter at the end of the day.
At the end of the day.
Yes.
Now, I know a few first ladies whose husbands have said, well, they're just here to support me. So they're not singing, they're not actively working in the church, and I guess I bring that up because is that a conversation that you're having with your husband? Did you guys have a conversation? He said, baby, look, this is what I expect of you.
Interesting enough, we did not have that conversation. However, he knew of the skills and the talents that I had. So naturally, I started working in Christian education. I started working with the missionaries. And I was a leader of the young adult missionaries at my old church. And so I took on that role at the church that him and I was at. And the ladies were very open to that, right? They were looking for new blood. They were looking for new ideas. And I brought that.
Okay.
And
they were receptive to it.
They were very receptive because I had a ton of ideas. You know, ideas. I'm just a creative person in that respect, especially when it comes to church and when it comes to ministry. And they welcomed the ideas. And so again, we didn't have that conversation, but I just naturally fit in where my gifts and my talents.
And these were things
best
you were
calling
already
for.
doing anyway in the church, so it was
There
just
you
to
go.
be continued. Do you
Yes.
think it's important to get the buy-in from the people? Because a lot of first ladies do come in, and this is, for everyone who goes out and sees people in the church. Every first lady could come in with great ideas, but it doesn't mean that it's going to be received well from the congregation, especially, like you say, if your husband is already established. So there are going to be certain factors that will play into that. But apparently, you were very well received, and things went well.
Well, all of those ideas didn't get implemented overnight.
Oh, no, of course not. Mm-hmm.
Right? It was a process.
Yes.
Right? Because everyone had their own ideas
Yes.
and how they were to do things. So
Yes.
I think that first year I kind of sat back and I observed.
See, that's a good point. I think observation is good.
Oh, it's very,
Yeah, for
because
sure.
you get to know the people.
Yes.
You get to understand the culture of the
Yes,
church, because every
yes.
church's culture is
It's very
totally different.
Very true.
There's different seasons of
Very
a
true.
church.
That's true.
Churches are very intergenerational, and so
Mm-hmm.
you really have to understand the inner workings of the church before you just come in and just start making
Exactly.
wholesale changes or just
Exactly.
offering up ideas,
Exactly.
because they may not be ready for those ideas. And so again, it was a process
Mm-hmm.
leading up to, hey, what do you think about this? And
Mm-hmm.
quite frankly, some was asking for my opinion.
Great.
And which was great, because typically I don't know if they do that, because I know the
Exactly.
previous first lady of the church, she sung in the choir. Well, I don't sing.
Right.
And so
Right.
I was asked to be in the choir, but I said, that's not my gift.
Mm-hmm.
Right. And so I had to graciously decline certain things, because
Yes.
certain areas they wanted me to be involved in, but you have to know your capacity and you have to know what you're bringing to the table to help
Absolutely.
grow, develop, and
love
even
that.
just
I love
help
that.
the church to its fullest potential.
Absolutely, and that is so very true. We talked about how important is it to have a first lady to have a talent or a gift.
Yes. When I was growing up, the gift was singing in the choir and playing an instrument.
Okay.
Right. And so that's what I saw. But then when I came to, John Wesley with, she sung in the choir, but she didn't play an instrument. And so, again, and then I had other women that were first ladies, and then I started getting involved in first lady groups, and so I just saw the differences in how they interrelated with their churches, what type of gifts they had, some of the things that they were doing, and so it was iron sharpening iron.
Oh, I love that.
Yeah, and so I was able to glean a lot from those ladies to help develop me.
Well, how does one, like a first-time first lady, I know when I started with the fellowship district, I thought that the ministers' wives and widows group would help me with some questions that I had about marriage and the relationship of being married to a pastor, but they were no help. So what messages are we sending to our first-time first ladies about this role, about the expectations, and not just expectations from the pastor, but most of the time it's expectations from the members, right?
Definitely expectations from the members, but expectations from the pastor as well. And I would say what I heard in a lot of those first lady and widowers groups is that the husband, to your point earlier, they didn't want them involved in the church. Right. So I heard a lot of that. And then I also heard a lot of, my husband's okay with me being participatory in a lot of the events or even holding leadership positions. And so I would say first ladies of maybe 20 years ago is not the same first lady as it is today.
Very true.
Because not only are they first ladies, but they're also co-pastors now. They're also evangelists. And so they hold so many different types of titles now that is not just the necessary or the old school first lady title and role.
Very true. And that kind of brings me to a point. It's like the first lady's role is turning into the associate minister for some strange reason. I've had a number of first ladies on the show who, we spoke about their ministry, and I said, but are people really thinking of you as the minister or the co-pastor or still the first lady in the first chair? But I don't know how that works. But I think we're always going to be looked at as that.
Yeah, I am not gifted into calling into a ministry, like a
I
preaching
agree.
type ministry.
I agree.
I mean, I speak at events.
do.
I've spoken at church for, certain days, but that was not my calling, and I'm okay with being just first lady.
Yes. And I said the same thing. I said I do a lot in the church because I want to. I don't think my husband really is giving me anything to do, but I am not interested in being the associate minister or a minister. I'm really content with where I am.
I would agree with you. I am too.
Very much so. Have you ever been accused of church hurting someone?
Not that I'm aware of, because I haven't heard anything of me being guilty of that. No, I haven't.
Have you experienced church hurt?
Well, just like hurt in general doesn't necessarily have to happen in church. It can happen at work. It can happen, in your family. And a lot of times that hurt that people experience, they bring it into the church.
Amen. Oh, I like that.
And so now, when they bring it into the church, now everyone is victim to that.
Wow. And that is very true.
Right? Because we know the old saying, hurt people hurt people. Right? And so just because you are coming to church every single Sunday and participating in events and, making sure you're going to Bible study and Sunday school and all those things, you still can be hurting.
You can still, you can
still hurt, and then you can still maybe take it out on other people.
Absolutely.
Maybe not even intentionally, but unintentionally.
Absolutely.
By your words, by your actions. And so sometimes I don't think people realize that they are bringing that hurt from all these other places into the church.
Wow. Now that's enlightening, because I don't think I didn't realize that, but you're absolutely correct. I've heard that term, hurt people, but I'm not thinking that's happening in the church like that.
Right. And I don't think it's a direct correlation.
No.
Between what happens between people at church rather than what's happening on the outside of church.
Absolutely.
And then you're bringing it in, and now that strained relationship that you may have had, now it gets expounded because perhaps someone else hurt you.
Yes.
And now you see an opportunity to maybe take it out on someone else.
I agree with that. I like that analogy.
And it works both ways, right? It could be same thing at church, and then you take it out on someone in your family outside of the church. And so
very true.
I think it's just reciprocal in that way. When you're hurt, you're just hurt. And you're looking for an outlet to be able to let it go. And maybe not necessarily in the right way.
Right. Now I agree with that. I love the way you put that. My producer is summoning me for a commercial break.
Okay.
Ladies and gentlemen, so if you would just give us a few more moments. I'm excited about the second half of this, because this is really what we've been trying to get into. But it's just so important to hear about the First Lady aspect of it. And we'll be right back from our commercial. Stay tuned. Hello everyone, First Lady Lakeitha London here, host of First and Foremost, the show that's all about your First Lady. Well, guess what? We are in season 4, and I cannot believe it. God has been so good. We have had a litany of First Ladies in our first year, and season 4 promises to have a whole lot more. I'm working on a new set right now. Guess what? Great conversations still to be had, great prizes to be won, and this season promises to be one of the best seasons yet. Tune in this Tuesday, August the 4th, for our grand opening show. Looking forward to seeing you guys. So until then, take care and God bless. And guess what we're doing? Celebrations, and come on! See you next Tuesday. Hello, good evening, and welcome everyone, and welcome to another episode of First and Foremost. I'm your host, First Lady Lakeitha London. And in the first chair on tonight is no one, because you have yet to call me First Lady. First and Foremost is a platform that's created just for you. It's giving us an opportunity to be seen and to be heard. Come and share your story in the first chair on First and Foremost. It is indeed waiting for you. I was in a conversation with someone the other day, and the conversation got a little heated because it was certainly something that I was passionate about. And During the conversation, the young woman said, "Oh, First Lady, I never thought of it that way. I apologize. You certainly do bring a different perspective." And you know what I said to that? Here's the First and Foremost, the show about the First Lady's perspective. Thank you for tuning in. Her perspective is unique because she sees both the public platform and the private process. She witnesses the tears behind the sermons, the warfare behind the worship, and the cost behind the calling. I was convicted more than anything, and this is the part that I say, one of the things you said that I kind of opened up my eyes really, and it might be a small thing out of your whole presentation. This is what I got out of it, about giving grudgingly. Because, you know, when you speak about finances and you talked about how we save, and we're going to get into more of that, and you're trying to budget, oh, should I give this or should I give that? And if the pastor, well, I need a $20 line or a $50 line, and I'll give it. You're not going to be blessed with that attitude. And you said that, and I don't think a lot of people know that. You cannot get a grudge give and expect a blessing. I think you actually had something that you said. Talk to me about that.
Right, it's scriptural, right? Be a cheerful giver, right? Don't give begrudgingly.
Yes.
Right? You want God to give to you in abundance, so why would you hold back on Him?
Exactly.
But at the same time, you need to plan for your giving.
For your giving. And people don't know that. They really don't understand that.
Yes.
And if you had to give me an acronym to help me to, and maybe this is, you just think about this, to work out my finances, something that would help me remember what I need to be doing on a weekly basis if I'm getting paid. What would that acronym be? And tell me what those words would be.
An acronym.
Because a lot of times we need little
You need-
things like
right,
that
you
to
need
help
little
me.
shorts,
If
right.
I get a check at the end of the week and it's $150, which I hope it would be more, but if it's $150, how can I save some of that? What am I thinking?
Well,
What should I be thinking?
In the workshop, I talk about making sure your money has a job.
Say that in the camera.
Making sure your money has a job. Your money should work for you. You don't work for your money.
Amen.
And that's one of the things that I say, because when you think about it, you have to plan to give, you have to plan to pay your mortgage, you have to plan to pay your car note, your utilities, all of those things you need to plan to do.
That's true.
So maybe plan is, I'm gonna come up with an
Please
acronym.
do.
Right. That's my homework.
Okay, that is your homework.
Right. But plan, because planning helps you to achieve more in the future.
That is true.
Right. So, I talk about in the workshop about being financial stewards, but being a financial steward also starts with mindset. So I talk about a fixed mindset and a growth mindset.
Okay.
And so if you are stuck in saying, I'm only going to give this or I'm only going to do that, that's your fixed mindset. But your growth mindset says, you know what? I'm going to make sure that I'm saving for the future. I'm going to make sure that I can give generously. Because that is what you've been taught to do. And so a lot of people haven't been taught financial stewardship.
Exactly.
In church, we talk about just tithe.
Right.
But that's the 10%. What about the 90%?
True.
What do you do with that?
Wow.
Right. But you
Very
have
true.
to manage the whole 100% that you're given.
Wow.
Because we're called to be what? Good
stewards.
stewards of the finances that God has given us, because that is what helps build the kingdom.
That's true. And the kingdom could be your church and your home, because my question would be, I want to thank all of our guests that's online. I apologize for that. Robin Criswell. Hello, it's good to hear from you. I love you, and thank you for joining the show. Patricia Graham and Lady Verdine Hurst, my sweetheart. Chris Carr, hello, Chris. Vitanja Bailey, I love you guys, and thank you guys so much for tuning in. If you guys have any questions, please feel free to give us a phone call, because Lady Deidra is going to let us have it, and I just appreciate that. We talked about earlier, and I want to get some information from our studio audience. My secretary is not here, and I don't want Jason to have to answer the phone, so you guys bear with me. One of the things I want to talk about is our shopping and our spending. And you and I talked about, when you came in, how you are a shoe fanatic. And I think most of us women are. I think most of us have something that we're spending on. How can I, in my heart, spend money on shoes? Where is that fitting into my budget? Tell me what area should I put that in?
So when you think about your budget, I'm laughing because that is something that, and in my workshop, I do talk a little bit about, just because it's on sale for, $9.99, that doesn't mean that you have to go and buy it.
That's true.
Especially if it's not in your budget.
That's true. Did you
right?
hear that, Lady Verdine?
We got our Amazon carts and all of those things in our cart.
Yes.
Just because they're in your cart, that doesn't mean you have to purchase them.
That's true.
You have to plan that out. And so I talk about how you have to set aside time, have a date night for your finances. You and your finances need to have a date, whether that date is on a Friday night,
Right.
or whether it's on a Sunday afternoon.
Right.
You and your finances should have a date.
Wow.
Meaning you need to set all of your bills out, you set all of your income out, and you plan it. You show, okay, what am I bringing in, and then what's going out, because you need to have a bird's eye view of what that all looks like, so you'll know if you can go spend $79.99 on a pair of shoes.
Exactly.
Right? Because if it's not in your budget, then you can't spend it, right? Because now you're going to be taken away from something else that actually needs your attention. And so you really have to think about your whole lifestyle.
Wow.
Right? And what does that mean? We can't just go rogue
That's
and
true.
just go out and buy any and everything, because now how are you going to plan for your future? How are you going to plan if you have an emergency? How are you going to make sure that emergency, so your refrigerator comes up and your refrigerator goes out? do you want to go out and get a loan for it, or do you want to be able to have that emergency savings set aside so now you can go and buy the refrigerator? So that means you have to sacrifice not buying hats or buying shoes. You got some pretty purple ones on here. Right. And so you just have to be very intentional about how you spend your money, because that is good financial stewardship.
It is
And Jesus talks about being a financial steward all throughout, the Gospels.
Yes.
And, he talks about the sower, he talks about the talents. And so that is our responsibility as Christians, as believers, to make sure that we are planning intentionally to give and to spend.
And I like the way that you did that in the presentation. It was always followed up biblically, because a lot of times, and not just when it comes to finances, it could be relationships or anything, people wonder, where does it say that in the Bible? You always backed it up with some words from the Bible, and I guess that's why I felt convicted.
Yeah.
But it's so hard to save when you're living off somebody else's money. And that's something that we talked about, because I don't know about you and you guys, I'll probably see some of the comments later, but please give comments. My husband gave away. I'm not gonna say a giver. He gave it away. He does that, and it's hard. So it's not like, okay, at the end of the week we're gonna have $150 to put in here. It's like, sometimes he pull his pocket as lint. I can't. What am I gonna do with that?
You have to gently have the conversation to say, honey, we need to have a sit down. And we need to plan, just like we plan a trip, right? You need to have money in the budget for that trip. But just because you're giving generously, it's not opposed to having a budget. So you can still give generously, but you have to plan to give generously. Right, because, it talks about in Malachi, it talks about bringing the 10th, right, to the storehouse. Well, in the New Testament, it's all about grace. So you can give over and above that 10%. I'm not going to get,
don't get into that, but
I only do, too theological, because sometimes people get a little on the fence about what that really means. Are we really supposed to do the 10? I stand in faith.
Absolutely.
On doing the 10, but then also doing above the 10. But I plan for it.
Yes.
Right. And that's the key. You have to plan. And a lot of times we're not planners.
We're not
right?
planners.
A lot of times we are on the spot. Right, we're spontaneous,
Very
if
much
you will, in the things that we do and the things that we buy.
Very true.
And so, but it goes back to our mindset, and it goes back to what were we taught about money? What were we taught about stewardship?
It's true.
And what we were taught is reflective of what we do. Whether it's in, in your teenage years versus your young adult years, and then into your mature years is what I call it.
It's mature years. Now, one of the things that you did say at the conference, and we did speak about that, is how generationally we've learned, I guess, this from parents or our moms or dad, and it was never really taught about it. But my mom and dad on Fridays would sit on their bed and get penny wrappers, quarter wrappers, nickel wrappers. They'd be wrapping all of the coins up.
Yes.
This is money is going to be going to the church. Firm believers are tithing. No matter what we had, they always gave that 10%. And they got 13 mouths to feed, but they made it work. And sometimes people always say, well, I don't want to do that because my parents did it. But we're so busy taking out the bad stuff that we're forgetting about the good stuff that they taught us, because that's a good thing, because change adds up.
It does. And I mean, they were teaching you even at that time, because even though they probably didn't have a lot, they were already teaching you about the tithe.
Exactly.
And I'll give you this story, and I've shared this story before, and it blew my mind. So as a young adult, living in my condo, and had a bunch of bills, and trying to plan to figure out what because I got in a little credit card finagling, right? And trying to figure out, like, okay, do I do the snowball effect? Do I do all these different things? Like, how do I pay this off? But at the time, I was not tithing. The minute I started tithing, because I went back to my roots, I went back to what I was taught. When I started tithing, I tell you, I had the same amount of money, but it felt like I had a whole lot more money.
Oh my goodness.
And I kept thinking, I said, so this is the supernatural effect
of tithing.
because God's economy is not our
Definitely
economy.
not. Amen.
God's finances are not our finances, because the way we think is not how God thinks.
True.
And I promise you, I was able to do everything I needed to do with the same amount of money.
Wow.
It blew my mind. And
Wow,
I'm thinking,
wow,
okay,
wow.
how is this? I'm like, the debits and the credits, they don't
not
match.
adding up. Oh, my
Right.
goodness.
I said, how do I have more when I know the finite resources that I have? But
Right.
that was God's economy.
Amen.
And so because of that, I think that is why I am such a firm believer of giving that 10% from your gross, not from the net.
Right.
Giving that 10% right off the top, so that God's house, God's storehouse, right, can have resources to be able to do ministry.
Amen.
And again, I tell that story because it just blew my mind that
Yes.
how do you have the same amount of money, but yet you still have more than what you began?
Wow.
And so in my head, I'm like, that is God's economy.
That's God's economy.
God's economy is not man's economy.
That is true. That is true. And that's also stepping out on faith. That's also being obedient to the word. And a lot of times we question the word. And I think that's why this tithes and offering thing. But there are people that, I don't mean swear by it, but trust and believe that that's exactly what God is going to do. Give us more than we can handle when we do tithe.
Right. But so you hit on it, faith. So faith is not believing that you spent the tithe on something else and now you're standing in faith that God is going to make ends meet.
No.
That's not faith. That's being irresponsible from being a good financial steward
Yes.
of God's resources.
Yes.
You have the 90. What are you going to do with that 90? You need, and quite frankly, not even 90, right? Because out of that 90, you need to be able to save.
Yeah.
Out of that 90, you need to be able to save for retirement, for emergencies. You need to pay your bills. You need to have that extra set aside for, I call it your play money, right? And so, but you budget for that play money, right?
Yes.
And so all of those things are what we are supposed to manage. And sometimes that also may mean we have to live underneath our means. You know, if you can't afford, you know, a $700 car payment, then you need to find something that's $300.
Absolutely.
And be okay with that, because guess what? It's still going to get you from A to B.
True.
Right. I know we want luxury and we want to, quote unquote, keep up with the Joneses. But guess what? The Joneses don't have your paycheck. The Joneses don't live in your household. And so we cannot compare ourselves to other people, because you don't know what's going on in their household. You don't know other things that they're doing. And so stay in your own lane, stay in your own house, right? And manage your own house.
I love that. My producer is saying it's wrap up time. But before we get ready to go, I do want to just ask you a question. I'm going to say 3 things to you.
Okay. And
I want you to tell me what the financial story looks like. And because I hear this all the time.
Okay.
YOLO. You only live once. Wait for the other 2. Live like there's no tomorrow. And you can't take it with you. What kind of financial story does that say?
That says that we're living out of a scarcity mentality. A scarcity mentality, and you're not trusting God to do what he said he would do in his word.
Wow.
And so, yes, you only live once, but you plan for that only living once. Yes, you can't take everything with you, but the Bible also tells us to leave a legacy.
Wow.
Right? How can you leave a legacy for the next generation and you're spending everything for yourself? Not saying that you have to sacrifice.
Right.
And you can live and eat what you want to eat and go where you want to go, but you got to plan for it.
And to live like there's no tomorrow.
Yeah, living like it's no tomorrow. What does that even really mean? Right? Do what you're supposed to do in that day. Be good to people. You know, make sure you're loving on one another. Do all of those things in that day. And so tomorrow you don't have any worries.
Amen.
Right? And so, but that doesn't mean you need to spend every dime that you get.
And I think that's it's lost of translation. 'Cause when people say that, I'm thinking, oh, so you're living in the moment. You're not saving for tomorrow. You're not
saving for tomorrow. And then they'll say, oh, well, tomorrow may not come.
Exactly.
It may not come. But guess what? When you pass on, who's going to pay for that funeral? Are you going to leave somebody that they have to go on? What's the
GoFundMe?
Yeah, the GoFundMe.
Mm-hmm.
And now everybody's trying to ask their friends and family to pay for your funeral when you should have been doing that in the very beginning and leaving a legacy for the people behind you. Like, why would you put people in that bind to do that on your behalf when you could have took care of that while you were alive?
True.
And so good stewardship, good financial stewardship is basically standing in faith.
Standing in faith. Yeah.
Right. Faith enough to know that what God has given you, that you can do any and everything that you need to do within your means, right? And so I just say to people, plan for your spending, plan for your vacations, plan for your shopping sprees. Just plan, right?
Yes.
It's all about the planning, but it's also about being intentional about the planning. So have that date night for your finances. Right? It may take you a while the very first time because maybe you haven't done it in a while, but I still believe in pen and paper.
Yes, me too.
And a book, right? I also do online things as well, but it's nothing like writing something out because you want to see the fruits of your labor.
Absolutely.
You want to see how you've saved. You want to see what you've accomplished, because that actually gives you that joy and it gives you that state of mind to say, okay, if I've done this, I can do something else.
That's very true.
Right?
That's very true.
I mean, because think about it. If people have kids, you have to plan for their schooling if they want to go off to college or maybe a trade school, but you still have to plan for that.
Well, you might be the exception to the rule because I'm sure everybody is not planning for it. You're on your own, after that. But I do want you to think of that acronym, because if I wanted to save some money today or right now, just the first step is what I do. And when I get that $1 or that $100, what should I be thinking immediately?
Well, for me, that $100, when you get it, $10 is going to the church.
Absolutely.
So now I got $90. So what do I need to do with that 90? And so start thinking about, okay, do I want to be able to eat out? Do I have to, gas bills are going up, gas is going up. And so now you have to start looking at, with that 90 now, how do I need to bucket that 90 in order to achieve, if I got to go, on the other side of town versus this side of town, gas is going up. So I need to figure out, I need to take from one category and put it in another category, because now I need to account for that. And so I'm thinking about
You're
that
gonna figure
acronym.
that out. I'm going to make sure that we get it before we get ready to go.
That acronym.
But if anyone is interested in your services as a financial planner or be able to come to one of your conferences, how can we get in contact with you?
I do have an email address, firstladyjohnson@comcast.net.
firstladyjohnson@comcast.net.
And most of my friends and a lot of the minister spouses and widowers organizations, I've done several presentations for different ones. So Abbatangela is one, and I've done a couple for them. I used to be the president of Abbatangela. And so,
that's awesome.
I love those ladies. And so I've taught sessions there. I've done workshops at my church. And so I'm easy to find. Deidra Johnson. I'm on Facebook, Instagram. I'm not going to give out my cell number, but people who know me, right, they can just reach out to me and say, hey, I have a conference or workshop, and, can you be a speaker for that? And actually, after the workshop with the BME, I've gotten like 2 invitations, well, 3, including yours, to come here on the podcast. And I find that it is a topic that is not always taught, and also the pastors can always teach that from the pulpit.
Yes, they can,
right?
but I don't think they could explain it like you did, because oftentimes when pastors are in the pulpit, you see this. When you're speaking to me, you're telling me, question mark, like, are you doing this? You know what I'm saying? So it's a big difference between that. So ladies and gentlemen, if you guys want further information from First Lady Deidra, I'll be happy to assist you with anything, but this really convicted me, and and it really makes me think about my future. They always say you got more years behind you than you do ahead of you, but there's always still time to still save and get it together.
And I don't subscribe to that.
Well, thank you. Thank you very much.
Because people are living to 100.
That is true.
They're living so much longer, and so you have to make your money stretch a lot longer. So that's why the planning
is
comes
so
into.
important.
So for me, it's planning and being intentional about the goals that you have. Also in the workshop, I talk about SMART goals, right?
Yes.
Making sure your goals are specific, make sure they're measurable, make sure they're attainable, make sure they're reasonable, and that they're time bound.
Right.
And when you do that, that's one acronym, SMART, right? And so once you do that, now you can figure out, how do I need to take those goals that I want to achieve and make sure that they're time bound. Don't just say, I want to save $50. Well, say, I want to save $50 by December 31st. And in order to do that, I'm going to put away $10, every other week, or whatever the frequency is, in order for you to get to that $50. And so that's how you got to think about it. Everything is not a microwave, right?
Everything
you can't just do things, in a minute, right? Again, being intentional, planning, making sure that you are thinking about your life after today.
That's very true.
Because you still got to live.
Still got to live. So, ladies and gentlemen, I know you enjoyed that second half, and this is what really happens to our First Lady when the hat comes off, because after she leaves church, she's got a whole nother world that she's dealing with. So I thank you again, First Lady Deidra Johnson. You said you were nervous before, so talk to me about the experience.
The experience was great. I am not nervous anymore. At first I really was, because I didn't know what to expect. I didn't know the questions you were going to ask, and if I was going to have the appropriate answers to respond to that. But once we started talking, I got very comfortable and was able to respond to the questions, and you made it so easy.
Thank you.
Because of your grace and just because of the way you interacted with me. And so I thank you for the opportunity to come on your show.
Thank you.
And talk a little bit about financing, talk a little bit about my experience as a First Lady.
Absolutely.
And I feel like this is a great show.
Thank you.
And I thank you for the opportunity.
Well, thank you. And I almost feel like we always say we're not going to have our First Lady guests back, but I have a feeling we're going to have you back, because if our audience loves you, we got to do what they ask. So.
And if I come back, and when I come back, I'm not going to say it, when I come back.
When you come back.
Right. It's all about your word.
Absolutely.
Right. So when I come back, I'll have the acronym, but I'll also have probably a few other things.
That'll be wonderful.
Because I'm working on some other stuff in terms of my workshops.
Well, that'll be wonderful.
So I can definitely bring a little bit of that back and be able to share with the audience.
Well, I look forward to it, and I know that we look forward to it. So, ladies and gentlemen, I already told you our fourth season is hot, hot, hot. Our First Ladies are just so talented and so gifted, and it's really just more than being the pastor's wife. So I just want to thank you for your magnificence on today, and certainly sharing your experience and expertise with us. I really appreciate it.
Yes.
So, ladies and gentlemen, until next week, take care, God bless, and have a good night. Thank you.
Bye, everybody.